And there was a moment where he starts playing, and I looked at the president, and the president was like looking at me. We're both like, this is happening. This is happening in front of us. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I mean, because if you think about Barack, I mean, for me, it's a special moment. But if you're Barack Obama or like Thelma Golden, Michelle Obama, like anybody, and especially any black person who had the like lay on the floor and look at the liner notes while the album plays moment.
Yes.
And that was how you experienced these albums.
Yes.
To be sitting in a room. I don't care. I mean, it's Barack Obama, but at the end of the day, what I'm saying to you about being human is this person, this very important American human, is sitting there being transported. I'm gonna impute feelings to a person. I know what he was feeling in that moment. He was 11 again.
Yeah.
He was 13 again. And he's on the floor of some house with this music, listening to this man answer questions in the form of a song.
Yeah.
Right?
The Touré show. Okay, though. The Touré show. Okay, though.
That might be the best question I've ever been asked.
You're a phenomenal person. I mean, you legendary.
I am a fan of you, my brother.
The Wonder of Stevie is my favorite new podcast of the year so far. It is a deep dive into the music of Stevie Wonder during the 70s. So there's one whole episode about Music of My Mind, one episode about Inner Visions, Talking Book, Songs in the Key of Life, that core streak where Stevie had 5 incredible albums in 5 years. For some reason, they also go into The Secret Life of Plants, a whole episode about it. I don't know why, because it's there maybe, but it's actually a really interesting conversation. Wesley Morris from the New York Times is the host of this thing. Josh Gwynn is a major producer behind this. This is a fantastic show. They get interviews from Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and of course, one from Stevie Wonder. We did a whole deep dive into our love for Stevie, the music of Stevie, and how they came up with this awesome podcast. Let's get into it. It's Wesley Morris and Josh Gwynn from The Wonder of Stevie on Touré Show.
My God, you guys have made an extraordinary podcast.
I just ate it up right away. It sounded great. The arguments were great. The structure was great. Even when I was arguing with you, Wesley, about how wrong you are about one thing, I was like, this is great.
I can't wait to hear what the one
It's
thing
no,
is.
but congratulations. It's extraordinary.
Thank you.
Josh, lead producer.
Thank you.
Wesley on the vocals.
On the vocal. Oh, yeah. You know what when he said that, you know what? Am I Dawn or am I Cindy? I think I'm Dawn. I'm Dawn.
Never gonna get it.
Oh my God. So was there a big argument about As being the center song of Stevie's catalog? Is that a discussion you had?
It was deeper than that. Or maybe more frivolous than that. I think
it was more frivolous.
Yeah.
And because each episode focuses on one album.
Right.
So one of the hardest things about making the show was narrowing down which songs to talk about.
Right.
And so with Songs in the Key of Life, like one of the biggest things is how voluminous it is.
Right.
And so we like our entire team had an entire conversation where we're like, okay, is this one going to make it? Is this one not going to make it? And I remember just assuming As would be one of the ones that makes, right? And Wes was like, eh.
Wait a minute.
I was going to say, like, we should be clear. It wasn't, I was truly like, but I knew, I did preface it by saying, y'all aren't going to like this.
Yeah, he did.
But how could you even make that point? It is the penultimate song on the album. It is the longest song on the album.
It's like a few after that.
No, there's one after that.
Well, there's like the extra disc, with the 4 songs on it.
A little something extra.
I mean, if you listen were you there in 1976? Were you there in 19? There's no way.
I mean, I was 5.
Right,
I
no.
know
I
I
was gonna
heard
say you
it.
weren't
I
there.
know my parents had it. I know
think
it was played.
to experience it now, unfortunately, or even at the time, there was still like another 5 songs.
I do feel
to go.
like as is the sun around which the album revolves. Is that not your position?
I understand it now. I mean, but going into this, it was not until making this show that I got it, right? And it's funny because everybody else who got it this was a thing. They didn't even have to get it. It was got, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had to experientially catch up to where these guys, like Josh, Janelle Anderson, our other producer, Anna Holmes, whose idea this was, and an executive producer on the show, they were already there. Janae Marable, who worked to Higher Ground.
The song builds as you go through it, right?
Yes.
And it rises. There's not a lot of other songs on there that they're more emotionally it starts in this emotional place and it ends in that emotional place. And maybe it communicates something to you as you go through. Village Ghetto Land, I am learning the point he's making, but the emotional attack is flat, right? That's what it's supposed to be. As it starts small and it grows and grows into this fever pitch.
I would just say one thing that we have all marveled at in the making of the show is that there are, I counted, it's 59. We've got 59 songs to deal with.
Yeah.
None of them not one of these songs sounds like any of the other ones.
Sure.
They're all distinct, and yet they're all classifiable. They all sound like they go on the album they're on, right? But it's not like Stevie doesn't have any tricks or any formulas. They're just so sophisticated that you would not ever think to call them tricks or formulas. But he is fond of starting on the first floor and winding up in the sky. That is a thing that he's very good at.
Mm-hmm.
So formally, I just find floor to sky arrangements in other songs more compelling, right? You take Heaven is a zillion light years away. I mean, where that starts and where that ends, that really works for me. The thing that it's not even that As doesn't work for me. It's that at some point it feels it always struck me as being repetitive, and I was never dialed into what it was repeating, right? This mantra I felt was always the mantra-ness of it was locking me out. But it wasn't until, it was deeper to me than you guys trying to convince me to come around to where you were. I felt in the room that day, I felt disappointment. Right?
In you?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Oh, yes. I felt it was as close to shame as I think I ever came. And I was really, really hoping, I'm not crazy. I know what it means to Black people, especially this song.
Yeah.
We've all been to the As wedding, right?
Yeah.
I've been to many of those where people have come down to the aisle. They have gone up the aisle. Mm-hmm. They have it's their first dance. Mm-hmm. And oh my God, you better be, you practice your As dance is what I would say. It's 7 minutes. But I was nervous that I was not going to I really was hoping I'd have a conversion experience and wouldn't have to brain my way through thinking about the importance. I could do it. It would have been fine. But for the show, it would have been great for me to feel in some way. Oh my God, I'm gonna start crying. For me to feel what is actually happening in that song.
You don't feel it?
I never felt it.
Well, wait.
It was not until the moment that we're talking about in the show.
Well, there's a moment in the show that I remember where I was when I heard it, because I was in the gym, and you're saying you're on the squat rack, and As is hitting you viscerally, and you're crying, And I'm like, I know this nigga ain't crying on the squat rack, but you really were.
I was crying.
Tell the class about what happened.
Well, it's so funny because like
Now he's gonna cry.
no, I mean, I think the thing that is really powerful about Stevie Wonder in general is that I don't even know if, I mean, it's funny because we only had him for like half an hour when we got him to talk on the show. But I mean, it wasn't like I only have a half an hour. It's just too logistical. But one of the things that I would have liked to have asked him, and we did ask him about like writing love songs, and he didn't quite. Something is coming through this man that he has a great deal of control over on the one hand, but no control over on the other. Right? Like he is a vein, like an emotional vein. And yet, I think that writing love songs for him is a choice when he could have been Curtis Mayfield, right? Where like love is part of the equation, but there's like all of this city to deal with. And the city, you know what I mean? Like other external sort of political, socio-political class forces are overwhelming the love part. But Stevie, the love part is almost always in the foreground. And there was just something about standing there with this weight on my shoulders, like squatting down and getting up. And it was something about that moment right before Preacher Stevie comes in. And it just like, I didn't even need that. I could just hear him metaphorizing what it means and what it takes to love someone and to feel love, to experience and receive it. And it is a galactic, supernatural, cosmic, like it is a deep, deep thing to like have someone transfer this positive energy into you and to receive it and then want to transfer it to someone else, right? Or transmit it to someone else because you keep yours, but then you give out more. It just hit me. And I mean, maybe it would have happened, but it would never have happened if we hadn't been working together.
There's a lot of political songs throughout this whole canon, right? And we're talking about Nixon. We're talking about Living for the City, right? This epic story. I look at it, Living for the City, as the Great Migration writ small, right? The boy goes from the South, he goes up north, gets trapped up with mass incarceration. Look what they've done to my life. I was getting fucked down south. I got fucked up north. Like, it's a really extraordinary song. And he's constantly commenting on political life in America.
Yeah, I think like the experience that Wes was talking about having with Az is I think we all had that experience with different songs throughout the process. Like, I think when someone is so fundamental to your like experience, you stop looking at it. Like the Stevie that I got was the one that was like the first time I knew who he was I was watching like a rerun, and I saw him with Denise and Theo on TV, and he's playing like
that was your introduction to Stevie.
That was the first time that I remember being like, oh, that's Stevie Wonder, and then like listening to songs that my parents would play or that like would play on the radio when my parents would drive me to school.
That's why they did that, The Cosby Show.
Exactly.
Right? Because there's so many of us who already revere him, but there's people who don't yet know him.
Right.
And let's put down a marker of like, we're going to introduce you to Stevie Wonder, and it's why they had Dizzy Gillespie on the show and why they had all these other people and the paintings they had, the whole thing was to do that, to introduce that to you, which you would have discovered Stevie anyway.
Right.
But let's make sure he gets it here.
And I think, so like, I with Living for the City, like, I just don't think I ever I knew it was like a great migration story.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think that like I ever like sat down and like examined why it was resonated with me. I think that like my experience with music, I'm not a musician, but
You are in a, you know what I mean? Like you say,
I have a great respect for musicians. And so but I'm a very instinctual.
You're a musical person.
I have a musical ear, but like I have a really instinctual relationship with music. So like getting to sit down and kind of uncover the why my instincts have led me to like resonate with something was a really good,
That's
like a really great
like
experience.
a little movie, right? Like it's a
it's a podcast. It's an audio movie. And
What, Living for the City?
Living for the City, and we got to talk with Bob Margouleff about how they sat there with like their recorder like in the streets getting ambient sound, which is something that I've done like in my career. Like, and they casted like different people from their lives to play the different parts during the skit in the middle, and it was just like really, really revolutionary in the way that they were able to like bring sonically express what was happening in his brain.
It's so sad. I almost wonder why do I listen to it again? It's a great song and the resolution is so powerful when he goes into like deep voice about how hard the world is. But I'm like, my God, when he gets arrested, not knowing what he's doing,
Right.
It's so sad. I'm like, why did I put this song on again?
Because it's a great gospel song.
It's a great gospel song. It's resonant and
It's a great
an
gospel
experience.
song.
It's like a blaxploitation song.
Yeah, but I mean, musically, the thing that keeps you coming back to, I mean, how many times have you watched The Mac? I mean,
A million.
or maybe
Or like The Color Purple.
A million.
Right. I mean, I would say,
were you supposed to say
Sorry,
not that
I was
many?
saying not to say that. I mean, I'm like, I forget. Who did I go to high school with?
That's my
I mean,
number
anyway.
one.
All right, I'll take it back.
blaxploitation film.
Sorry. All right. I retract that. But the point is, that's not, it's not the blaxploitationness of it that keeps you coming back. It is that moment once he, like when you suddenly get when the gift of a third verse. I love a song that seems like it could have ended 2 minutes ago, but wait, there's a third verse? And it's the third verse where like Stevie has switched his tone, right? He's now angry.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's a kind of defiant, he's in defiance of the kind of storyteller he was at the beginning of the song. And now the storyteller is connected to the circumstances and the only appropriate response is rage.
And he's the preacher and he's the judge. And he's sentencing society.
Yes. But it isn't so, I mean, you can still get that from Bob Dylan, right? Yeah. And Bob Dylan will give you 7 verses. But what Bob can't give you is the celestial, all of that sort of building choral arrangement that is like in major key. I mean, it's church, but a tragedy, right? Like this is music. It's not even music for a funeral, right? Because it doesn't, I mean, I don't know. We've never talked about this, but like, I feel like the holiness of this, I don't even know what the ceremony would be, but it definitely is condemnation of a nation.
Imagine a political campaign
Yeah.
that was their main plank was against mass incarceration, right? This could be like, this is our theme song, Living for the City, right? Because he comes down in the end like, if we don't change, the world will soon be over. Like mass incarceration is, along with poverty and inability to get jobs, that is a central problem for us.
Yeah, but I mean, do you want to call Kamala Harris and tell her that she is missing out on an opportunity to use one of the greatest songs ever recorded?
And freedom, and that's good for her. I'm just saying,
there's always room for another song. I mean,
is there a favorite? Because this is Stevie's main 5 albums that we are focusing on. Right?
The 5 albums in this streak. Now, I mean,
right. The 5.
Because listen, I mean, Hotter Than July, In Square Circle, Jungle Fever. I mean, please.
Even going the other way, where
are
I'm
you
coming from.
wincing?
I am wincing because, yes, I am wincing, Wesley, because those albums have great moments.
Yes.
These are great albums.
I just want to be clear about what something about the way you phrased that was just like, it gave me pause. And I think it's only that, like, one thing Stevie Wonder, the only time I'm willing to like let him have the floor in this arena is when we talk about these albums as though it ended in 1976, right? I'm not saying that, you're actually saying
this streak of of him at his highest level.
Yes.
Does end with this group of songs, with
Songs in the Key of Life.
Songs in the Key of Life.
Yes, it does. But I don't think I think it's just longer than that, because what happens in these streaks to me, when someone is at their when they're out there having their imperial moment, and many pop stars, many artists have them. Music is the most interesting zone for me, because you can do a lot in a short period of time. There's usually some serious fruitful afterburn where the person does not want to repeat what they already did. They really don't want to go near anything as remotely exhausting or successful as the previous thing. And they want to take some risks, right? Which is why you go from Songs in the Key of Life. There's a couple years off. I know.
I know. And I want to talk about The Secret Life of Plants. And you make this really ridiculous. I mean, you make this interesting argument.
let it be ridiculous.
About it. But before we get to that.
Okay.
What is, out of the streak albums, out of the albums that you focus on in this show, what is your favorite album? Can you even say one favorite?
I feel like if you would have asked me before making the show, I would have said Songs in the Key of Life. Mm-hmm. But I have such a different relationship to Fulfillingness as finale now.
Yes.
Like, and it's what I think the aim of the show was, like understanding the story behind how he was making the music, understanding where he was in his biography at the time, understanding the conversation with Yolanda Adams, like that contextualizes it as a gospel album, changed how I received the music. It changed how I listened to the music. And so I probably that one, if only for this experience.
Is that your favorite out of this group?
Yes. And it was going in.
Yeah.
But I will say that now that we're done, like, and have I said this in front of you before?
I don't know.
I don't have any regrets about what we did. But one thing, and we talked about this while we were making the show. I wish that, no pun intended, I wish that we could have spent more time on Music of My Mind, right? Because that's the album to me that every time, since we finished recording, and now the show is out, like every time I go back to that, I'm like, it's the album where he's figuring out how to make the other four, even if he doesn't know it, right?
Sure.
He's got this new toy, he's playing with it, he's a little kid on the album, like the person.
When you say the new toy, you mean the technology, but this is where he starts to have the freedom that you talk about, right? In the 60s, Berry Gordy's very much in control of what they do. And then he says no, and he stands up to Barry. He demands artistic freedom. He gets it. It is a change.
And his money, just clearly.
Yes, it's a massive change for Motown. It's a massive change for the music industry, right?
Yes.
And that's where he's starting to say, okay, I can make whatever I want. What do I want to make? And that's extraordinary to watch.
Yes. But the thing about Music in My Mind is you can hear somebody playing too, right? He's playing with what he can like literally say, like the N-word, and like I can chase women.
He's like line stepping.
Yeah. There's just so much. I can be an asshole. I can be an asshole in a song. I can be an asshole. I can be nice on one half of the song and then an asshole in the other half of the song.
But the asshole, within the context of the song, he is making fun of that person. So he is clearly saying,
he's aware.
Don't be like this.
He's aware. He's aware. But there's also like some just genuine feeling in that moment. It's not, there are like comedy songs on that album. There's 9 songs. 2 of them are funny.
Yeah.
Where Were You When I Needed You, Superwoman / Where Were You When I Needed You? Like that's not comedy, but it's commentary on the person who the person who starts a song off one way winds up another way, or comes around, he doesn't come around at the end, but you as a listener are aware that the person who wrote this song understands what it means to blame a woman for wanting all that she wants for herself, and then being upset when it doesn't work out, and you should have been here to serve me, right? Like, there's no moment in the song where it's not like Blame It on the Sun, which is on Talking Book, where the woman comes on at the end and is like,
you blame it on, what did she say?
It's basically
You
like,
blame it on you now,
right?
Or-
Conveniently, like, you want to say all this now, but you weren't
Like, this
saying
is
it in
new.
a
Like,
relationship.
I've never seen this side of you before.
Right.
Basically,
That's not what he's doing on Superwoman. Where were you when I needed you? Like, he's like, I mean, you don't know how to do your job as a partner.
Right.
Period.
Right.
But you know, as a listener, that Stevie, he's gonna figure it out. And like by the time you get to the next album at the end of the year, Talking Book, I mean, there's no song on there remotely like
He's
that.
deeply emotional. He's not a tortured person, right? Like, I think some stars artists who have talked a lot and given us a wide array of emotions, and you could say at some level they're tortured. I don't think he's a tortured person. Do you?
I think he's like a practical optimist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think he when in that last episode, it was Wes, President Obama, and Stevie, and I think he's someone who just like wants to see the best in people and is disappointed when they don't show up that way, or when things aren't working out to the best potential that they can. You know, which is something that I feel like is really needed in our politics.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, no, he is not, torture does not adhere to him, right? Like, that is not his default setting as a human being, but the disappointment is real, right?
It's
to
real.
this day. He's making music, his new music is entirely about being disappointed by the way the world is.
And even back then, they won't go when I go. Like,
Yes.
When he like damns people to never see the sun, like
Jesus
you feel like
Christ.
you just got like
Brimstone Preacher. Oh my God. Fulfillingness first finale has a really special place in my heart because, especially when I was in my 20s when I felt depressed, I would put that on 7, 8, 9, 10 times in a row, and it would carry me and lift me out.
Yes, yes.
Right? And it's not a happy album. It met me where I was
gets there,
depressed.
but for the most
then I'm
part,
like,
no.
okay, I've seen you. I have respected you, depression. Now I am leaving you. Right? I think a lot of people would think, put on
That's the
something
arc of the
happy.
album too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it seems smaller, right, than some of the other ones, but it's so powerful.
Isn't it Alex who calls it like a singer-songwriter album? Yeah, I mean,
Papademos.
Alex Papademos, who's on the first half of the Fulfillingness' episode, he kind of likens its importance and its uniqueness in this streak to like this is like somebody sitting down with a guitar, except it's Stevie Wonder, who sit down with all the instruments as though they were guitars and like strums out, makes a Joni Mitchell record.
So beside As, where did this immersion in Stevie-ness lead to you changing? Oh, I thought that song was about this and it was actually about that. I thought this song meant this to me and it was actually about that. Because surely there were places where you were like, I am changed in how I feel about this stuff.
I mean,
Boogie on.
so many. It's funny because Fulfillingness does have the most songs where what I thought was going on is so much richer and more complicated, both as music and as experience, personal experience, than I would ever have known before we started making this show. Right. And so just to take, you haven't done nothing. Right. I mean, I guess on its surface, I knew that it's a song about Nick. It's a song about his being angry and disappointed in the Nixon administration.
Mm-hmm.
But think about what it means, because Stevie at this point would have been 23. Think about what it means for like the former youngest person at Motown to then recruit the official youngest people at Motown to come sing. The Jackson 5 is who I'm talking about. To come sing back up on this song about how Richard Nixon essentially doesn't care about black people. And to like basically give the doo-wops to the Jackson 5. And I'm looking at the liner notes I looked at the liner notes for pretty much every pass I took at these songs. And it just, we didn't use any of this, but I wrote it. Like, I was just thinking about like what it would mean to like give them these exclamation points, which, you know, are like bats to just club Nixon over the head.
Yeah.
Like it just, there's so many things like that. Like just even sitting with listening to Yolanda talk about what the gospel, the biblical gospel and the musical gospel of They Won't Go When I Go is doing. Right?
They'll never see the sun, S-O-N versus S-U-N. Like, I was like, mind blown.
Right. Stevie says they will never see the sun. And Yolanda, like me, originally thought you'll never see the sun in the sky. But what he really means is the S-O-N, Jesus, they'll never.
Yeah.
It's
church.
That was me though. Yolanda seemed to have always known that. I was hearing S-U-N.
She's like, she realized it in her getting deeper into the Bible.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think about it until Yolanda told me.
Right.
And it was, my mind was blown on the spot. But that album is the one that has so many rewards in that respect, because I think it's just the one where like there is a world in which he doesn't make it. Right? I mean, he literally doesn't make it like to life, right? He's dead, because this is the album he makes in the wake of his car accident.
Right.
But also it's an album he doesn't make because he doesn't have the car accident, and it's just in a different emotional, he's still happy. And, you know, thinking and singing about, I don't know what the next album would have been, right? You know, I mean, I think we joked that he could have stopped after Intervisions and we'd have been fine.
Well, sure. No, for sure. One of my favorite memories from listening to this when Michelle Obama says, and then you talk to Stevie and he's like, I'm like, as one does. And I just pick up the phone and there's Stevie and like, he talks like as. I know, girl, it's crazy. But also like, you guys like, so when you're talking to Michelle Obama about Stevie and then she says, yes, I know. That's so exciting. You get her and Barack talking about Stevie's relationship to their lives, to their relationship. Stevie is one of the central conversations on their first date to be like, are you okay? Are you okay? I mean, and like, yeah, it's one of those bedrock check-in things. Like, so you're right, you're a normal person, right? You bathe, right? You eat vegetables, right? You like Stevie Wonder. Okay, all right, we can continue this conversation.
Who would that even be now?
Beyonce. And This American Life, right, did a whole episode on that about how black women go on dates and ask men, do you like Beyonce, as a stand-in for do you like black women?
Yes.
And if they don't say yes, then you don't get a second date.
Yes.
Which I'm like, yeah, if you're like, I don't fuck with Beyonce, like, what do we have to talk about?
Beyonce put out after, what was it? During the Lemonade era, she put out merch that said boycott Beyonce. And I bought it at one of her tours, and I got so many interactions on the street that I didn't want to have. I was like, I would get people to be like, yes.
Yeah,
and I'd be
okay.
like,
I was gonna say.
No, you failed the test. You failed the test. You didn't even know.
You failed the test.
Thank you for putting that shirt out.
Wait,
we did a lot of people out.
What was the demographic of Me Too?
It was interesting. I would see black men and they'd be like, oh yeah. But I would get a couple women too that would be like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm like,
no, honey,
I've stopped
no.
wearing it
Wow.
at one point because I was like,
It's
I'm
like
tired of being angry.
reverse MAGA, right? You wanna know who we are as a people? Put on a boycott Beyonce shirt. But let me think about this. I mean, because I think as a litmus for those purposes, true. But if you're going, like, what would a man want to hear a woman say? Like, you know how Stevie is mutual for the two of them? Is there an artist that is universal enough for, and as much of a like humanity-oriented food group?
It would depend on the.
It would just be Stevie Wonder.
It would. I mean, it would depend on your age,
Right.
Right. Like if you're of a certain age, you gotta at least say you like funkadelic, right? Like if you're like fuck P-Funk, I'm like,
Who said?
right. I'm
Again.
saying like if you're of a certain like if you right like a certain time you said that like beyond that, I'm like for younger folks, I don't know. Do you have to like Jay-Z? You don't have to. Do you have to like Andre 3000? I mean, like, I don't know what you wouldn't like about Andre 3000.
But he's not. I mean, this is an interesting thing because we'll find out in 25,
you know,
30 years, right?
It may be the inverse of like, do you still like Kanye? Oh, you still like Kanye? Then we're not.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It'd be yes, it would have to be the inverse.
But wait, so Obama's,
yeah,
that was a Zoom
yes,
with both of them at the same time?
No, separately.
No, they were separate.
Separately.
Yeah,
How was
And
that?
that's why it was like really awesome to hear like both sides of the same
Yeah, I was
story.
gonna say.
Yeah.
And when you go back after you do an interview, you do like a transcript.
Yeah.
And you like read like, and to hear both sides of the same coin was just like really, really, really awesome to hear. Like, and just like the way that they both like used him as like a kind of like a shorthand for like a certain cultural understanding of like what was happening. I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing, you know, I honestly believe there's a version of this show that maybe I'm the host of, but there's a co-host, right? And like, we could have made this show 15 different times, 15 different ways with Rick McLaughlin, Janelle Monáe, Questlove, Yolanda Adams, Barack and Michelle Obama separately, right? Barack Obama, Michelle Obama. We could have made it with Lorna Simpson, Thelma Golden.
With different guests.
Oh, yes.
For sure.
I mean, all 6 episodes.
For sure.
Just me in conversation with somebody else.
For sure.
Like top to bottom. And everybody is bringing their full like knowledge, feeling, curiosity, emotional state. They're a collection of emotional states. There were times when, you know, when we finished talking to Barack Obama, I'm like, he should just, why isn't he just, this is his, he could just be doing this show
Just
himself.
host the show. For sure.
I mean, the same for Michelle. I mean, but the great thing about having all these people is that you are experiencing the I don't know if we talked about this a little bit. I don't remember if this is in the 6th episode when we talk about the kids and stuff. But like, if you think about all of the great American people who can trace their earliest or maybe most important developmental childhood moments to this man.
Like when we there's a moment in the show where we hear Michelle Obama and Thelma Golden.
That's just my
and
favorite.
they're talking both about the experience of having like this cool elder, like an uncle or a cousin who's like the gatekeeper of like the cool new music, and their experience of and ritual of like taking the record, making sure that the needle was clean. And they work in totally different fields. They're from different parts of the country, and they had this like universal experience around this music. And I think that says something culturally.
I mean, physically,
Can you talk about being in a room with Obama and Stevie at the same time? Like, what the fuck?
I know.
Who are you
I'm
more
supposed
excited?
to-
Who are you more excited to see that day?
I don't work that. I wish. I will be honest with you. I mean, mostly you just want to get it right for Josh, right? That was my most important concern. Like, I cannot fuck this up for Josh and Janelle. Like, I cannot. Like, I've never been more, I wasn't stressed out, but I was very aware of the assignment, and I did not have time to, like, I mean, I guess go off script is a great way to sort of think about what I was not doing that day. But at the same time, you like the person with Black people in his life in me, like, knows that you better be taking pictures in your brain. You better remember every single thing that happens, because
Bucket list moment.
this is never gonna be, this is never gonna happen to you again in this way. So, I mean, I think between having this Black person,
Josh.
like needing me to do something, and like 45 Black people in Philadelphia being like, you did what now? And you didn't do what now? I really knew that I had a very specific job to do. But I also have to say, like, at the end of the day, they're both people, right? And the thing that yes, they are. They truly are. I mean, like, actually human beings that do the things that people do.
Yeah.
And for instance, when I'm off asking a 400-word question that doesn't have a question mark at the end, and Barack Obama, who is sitting there listening to me, like, try to land this plane for a man who is like, he doesn't know what's happening. And Barack Obama's like, I think what Wesley's trying to say here. You know what I mean? There's a lot of, like, human moments like that where I'm like looking at the president, and he's like, you just got to let Stevie talk. You know what I mean? There's a lot of, like, just like, don't interrupt, or, you know, he and I were like a team, right? And at some point you just realize that that you have a job to do, and your job is to ask Stevie Wonder questions that are impossible for any genius to answer. Basically, where does your genius come from?
Sure.
What do you think about the impact that you've, I mean, things you have to ask, but things that you know you probably aren't going to get.
Did he say
a great
anything
answer
about the music that illuminated anything to you about his music?
Well, I think that he is, again, like, I really was truly moved by and convinced by his belief that there is no difference between Stevie Wonder now and Stevie Wonder in 1972. It doesn't matter what we think.
That's what Stevie said?
Oh, yes.
That,
I mean,
I'm
paraphrasing, but I mean that it's still in him, the great music. It's still in him, and it's still coming out of him. Like, and he doesn't think that anything ended in 1976. Nothing. Like, it continues to this day.
The notion of the streak that you talk about, that does not exist to him.
That is for us to, like, mess around with. He's not into that. I mean, he supports the show. But I mean, the container that we're putting the art in, that doesn't exist for him.
Sure.
He doesn't even, I mean, like, how do you even countenance that if you're him?
Sure.
Like, he's making music right now.
No, he can't.
He's on tour right now.
Yeah.
So he cannot be contained by 4 years, right? Or 5 years. I don't know. I mean, you're listening for a different thing. So I'm curious about.
I just did everything I could to make sure that there was a keyboard there. And I say that because I just was like, having done the amount of research that I've done, and I just know, like, musicians, when words fail, music is what they lean to.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
and he did.
And it was like being in front of an Olympian, like,
that's a great way to put
an
it.
Olympian that is a poet.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
And there was a moment where he starts playing, and I looked at the president, and the president was like looking at me. We're both like, this is happening.
This is
This is happening in front of us. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I mean, because if you think about Barack, I mean, for me, it's a special moment. But if you're Barack Obama or like Thelma Golden, Michelle Obama, like anybody, any especially any black person who had the like lay on the floor and look at the liner notes while the album plays moment.
Yes.
And that was how you experienced these albums.
Yes.
To be sitting in a room. I don't care. I mean, it's Barack Obama, but at the end of the day, what I'm saying to you about being human is this person, this very important American human, is sitting there being transported. I'm gonna impute feelings to a person. I know what he was feeling in that moment. He was 11 again.
Yeah.
He was 13 again. And he's on the floor of some house with this music, listening to this man answer questions in the form of a song.
Yeah.
Right? And that was really, that's a thing I won't forget. It's just like,
Just an interesting
not famous people, but people responding to people.
thing that happens in this piece, because you're going through these toweringly great albums that everyone's like, oh my God, love this album. And you're celebrating them along with us. And it's just as great. And then we get to the secret life of Pantalones. And
Pantalones.
you make an interesting intellectual point that you're like he did the genius and we should not constrain it there. It's kind of like the brushstroke continues, and whatever else you think about this seventh part or the sixth part, it's the continuation of the brushstroke. We got to see it all the way through.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it, actually.
That's your argument. That's your point.
Even as you dismiss.
No, I don't.
Like, but I do believe that your metaphor is exactly the way I'm thinking.
Well, that's what you're talking about, and I don't mind the scope of this going. We looked at the conventionally considered streak, and we expanded it to say, well, what happened next? We could have done. Let's also look at where I'm coming from, right? Like what happened.
Right. We had that conversation.
We had that conversation.
Right? But like, Secret Life of Plants is more controversial. It's and you try to make the point that it's actually good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do, because
and
it is.
Barack is.
Yeah, but see,
and Barack is like, no, brother, which is a great moment. It's a great, radio moment.
Yes, it is. But I mean, I would say
not, this is.
But I would challenge anybody, because Josh,
Mm-hmm.
you listened to this album in the context of making this show.
Mm-hmm.
You had not really given it a meaningful thought in how many years? Yeah.
Maybe ever.
Ever. I think like I'd heard like bits and pieces of it. Like,
There's one great song on there that travels beyond this album that people know of that they don't even know that it came from this album. Right?
Send
Love's
One
in
Your
Need.
Love?
Yeah.
Send One Your Love.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
But do you like the album?
I like.
There you go.
No,
There you go.
wait,
There you
no.
go. Here, there you go. Right there.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
It's fine.
I had the same experience with that album that I did with a lot of the music, which is like the song like Race Babbling. We talked to Questlove about it, and it being like a proto like
So
house
great.
song.
Yep.
Like I'd never listened to it in that context before. So like listening to the album, I got to listen to the album in a different way. Is my answer.
I also would say just like the thing that makes it important in the context of these albums was, I think that he was probably at a place where he felt like he had said everything. He couldn't have been more successful. And I am just so fascinated by and moved by the idea that the project that got him out of the like not wanting to make any music for a little while funk was an opportunity to practice his animism and empathy for the good of the planet and to express a botanical wonder in who we are, right? Like in our relationship to
Falling
this
asleep
other
as you talk.
way of being.
Okay.
I mean,
why does it have to be instrumental? Like,
It's-
get some more music.
there's
get some more melodies. Singing,
okay,
and then-
but Touré, if you would just waited for 6 months, you got hotter than July. Like,
no, I know. You know, I
like it came. He knew what he was doing. He
Well, he
the
knew what
big-
he wanted to do.
Right, he did it. He did it. He made the album he truly wanted to make and give a fuck about what anybody was gonna think.
That's
and then
fine.
he made the one that would be like, oh, Stevie's back, thank the Lord.
I mean,
Some
Sin One
jam.
Your
I can
Love
still do
proves.
it.
I mean, like he had not lost it, right?
Right.
He chose to go in a different direction. That's fine. I don't know if this is a successful direction at all.
No,
if
but-
I said we're gonna sit here and listen to Secret Life of Plants start to front, would you be like, yeah, let's do it? Or you'd be like,
yes.
Yeah, especially
Yes.
if we can watch the movie too.
Yes.
no. It's an album. You
No, I
can't
mean-
watch the movie too. All the other albums, obviously, we'd be like, yo, it's going to be a great
But
album.
when is the last time you listened to it? I tell you, I mean, you've got a great critical brain. I'm telling you. Also, you've got an open humanity. You will listen to this album and you're gonna feel bad about how you're treating us. Right?
No, I won't. No, I won't. I remember being very young, maybe 8 years old, and my mother. But I think the first time I was aware of this album was my mother poo-pooing it because she was a big
That
Motown
was-
fan, a big Stevie fan. Marvin Gaye was her guy, and like this, she must have been like, "Oh my God, Talking Book! Oh my God, this album! Oh my God!" I'm sure like Songs of the Key of Life they were like playing all the time when we were like 5, 6 years old, and then this, she was like.
But there was a real generational.
That was
that's a
Questlove's
story
dad.
Questlove's dad. So Questlove tells about his dad.
That's a great story, right?
mean-
that Questlove's dad listened to this album and he's like, clearly, I am not down with what the kids are doing today. No more contemporary music for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, imagine that that's the thing. I mean, can you imagine what like Lil Durk would have done? Like,
I just love the
Like-
fact that I love when an artist has like done the thing and they're like, I'm gonna do what I want now.
Yeah.
Like I just love that action.
I support that action. I support inventiveness and trying new things. And obviously not every exploration is going to be successful.
yeah, but what I would also say is, I mean, this is not inadmissible in the court of this argument. But what I would put in the brief is that there are so many artists who hear this album and feel spoken to, right? There are so many
Right. Solange
who-
talks about this album.
I mean, Janelle Monáe, Questlove. I mean,
Janelle Monáe wrote
that
a
was
musical.
one of her first school play
Yeah.
like performance situations was like interpolating Secret Life of Plants, right? I think if you take just those three artists, Solange, Janelle Monáe, and Questlove, and you just extrapolate outward, I like who else heard this and was not like
You take me back though. I had a conversation with Quest a long time ago, and he had said, and this changed my thinking about music. He was like, I no longer think about music as far as good and bad. I'm just looking to see what it does
Yeah.
and why it functions or doesn't. And I was like, well, that's very liberating to think about things because we're like critics. We're always like, up, thumbs down. I'm like, no. Like what to say? What is it is more, and it would be more interesting in this conversation to
Yeah.
talk about what the Secret Life of Plants is. But it's more fun to tell you, no, Wesley, you're wrong. The album sucks. Why are you making?
Yeah, but I would never let you just leave it at that because I just think that there's so much more on this and so much more is happening than good or bad.
Yeah.
And by the way, like talk about kids and stuff, like the most beautiful parts of this album involve things being born, kids being put to sleep, lullabies. I mean, there's just so much
listeners being put to sleep.
I mean, fine, but like, I mean, there are lullabies of love and care. It's not necessarily to bore you.
What was the thing that Stevie said to you while you guys were together that most stays with you?
It wouldn't be a quote, but I mean, I definitely wanted to talk to him because we had this interview maybe a month after that Jan Wenner story broke, where he all of the things that he is quoted as having said, including things about Stevie Wonder being one of the very few people to have any relationship with them, like Black people, to have a meaningful relationship culturally with the magazine for a period. And I was really eager to see, like, oh, I want to see Stevie give it to Jan. Let's see Stevie get in there and beat Jan the fuck up. But he just dismissed the question out of hand.
Yeah.
He just didn't want to go there. And it's not that he didn't want to go there. He just was like, I'm not going to dwell on this.
No.
People want to be ignorant and say stupid stuff. Let them say stupid stuff. I know my worth.
Yeah.
I know the problems of this country, and I know that this is an example. This is a good example of it. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here and talk shit about Jan Wenner. I'm going to say that there is ignorance in the world, and we need to move past it.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I'm not a big questions asker of people in my life. It's another thing that changed my life about this show. Like having to interview so many different people about a variety of different things. But I think that was a moment where, like, oh, I understand what happened. Like, you asking a provocative question may not get you the answer you want, but it gets you the answer that's true.
Yeah.
And that response to me was so true to the person I was asking the question to.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is a practical optimist.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's an extraordinary podcast. I love the listen. I love the way you voice this show, Wesley.
Thank you.
Like, we already knew you were good at broadcasting, but I think the way you are talking your way through this is extraordinary.
Oh,
Somebody who's sat in that chair, I'm like, he was good. He was good there. He did a good one there.
Thank
He
you.
was good. And Josh, thank you so much. You guys, thank you so much for coming through.
Doesn't happen.
Love the show.
This guy, just like really, truly one of the pleasures
Same friend.
of my microphone-oriented life. Truly.
I want to cry.
Yeah, was working with these guys.
Turn on ass.
Yeah. There we go.
Turn on ass. Let's cry together. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, if you like what you saw today, be sure to check out more Touré Show content right here. Don't forget to click that subscribe button for more Touré Show content every week.